Hey everybody! Today what we're going to be doing is looking at histograms and frequency polygons. So this video is going to show you kind of how to draw a histogram, how to draw a frequency polygon, what are they, how do we label them, how do we create them. So let's get started. All right, so today what you're going to need is just a pencil, really. Maybe some graphing paper might be useful, but we're going to get started here just by going with the definitions. So a histogram is going to be the graph of a frequency table in which intervals are marked on the axis or on a axis. Usually it's on the horizontal axis, but I have seen it on the vertical axis sometimes. But usually we have intervals on one axis and the frequency of each interval is represented with a bar. A couple of things that I want us to note about histograms is that when we go to draw them, we don't want to have any space between the bars. So no space between the bars. For a frequency polygon, what that is that that's going to be the graph of a frequency table, so very similar to a histogram, but it's going to look different. It's when we're going to take the midpoint of each interval and we're going to join them using straight lines. So how I'm going to teach this is that I want us first draw a histogram and then we're going to draw a frequency polygon over top of it. I feel like this is the easiest way to get a frequency polygon drawn a lot of the time. So I will end up drawing both. Here is an example. Given the following frequency table, draw a histogram for the year 2007 and a frequency polygon that compares all 3 years. Okay, so what we're going to start with is I'm just going to draw a histogram and I'm going to choose to look at 2007. Afterwards, what we're going to do is we're going to take all 3 of these sets of data and we're going to create a frequency polygon with it. So we're going to leave the midpoint for now. We're going to be doing the midpoint when it comes to our frequency polygon. Right now, what we're going to do is a histogram. So below what I have here is just a chart. So when we go to draw a histogram, first, there's always those classic things that we need. We need a title. Well, the title is already given to us when it comes to our frequency table. So I'm just going to leave the same title. So this is going to be magnitude, ratings of earthquakes. I mean, ideally, we'd probably want that to be more in the center and looking a little bit nicer, but we're also going to say that this is just 2007. Looking at the axes, so we have magnitude here. This is what's going to go onto my horizontal axis, and we're going to create this with ranges. So first, let's create a title. We'll have magnitude. And here's where a histogram is slightly different than a bar graph. Notice that the magnitude is in ranges. We're calculating how many earthquakes are there between 0 and 1 magnitude, between 1 and 2, between 2 and 3. And what we're creating is intervals. So when I'm looking at my horizontal axis, I'm going to label it where I start with a 0 in the bottom left corner, and I'm going to increase by 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And what this creating is intervals. So when I go to create a bar in between here, this is going to be telling me how many earthquakes had a magnitude between 0 and 1. The next one will be the bar that tells us the magnitude between 1 and 2, between 2 and 3, and so on all the way up. On the vertical axis, we're going to have our frequency. So we're going to have frequency. Let's make sure we label that. And then we need to come up with some type of scale. So what I notice here is that the highest that it goes up to is 16. So I'm going to see if maybe going up by 2 would leave us with enough. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. It's exactly. So that's perfect. Let's go up by 2. Wonderful. Once we have our scales, we're ready to draw the bars in. So what we're going to first start with is let's look at the magnitude. How many earthquakes were between 0 and 1? Well, there was 0. So we're not even going to create a bar here at all. The magnitude between 1 and 2, there was 2 of them. So we're going to create a bar. So in this case, it's very similar to a bar graph. However, when we go to now create from 2 to 3, we're not going to leave any space. So for between 2 and 3, there were 16 earthquakes there. So I'm going to be connecting that with the previous bar that I just had. Again, notice no space in between those. And again, we're going to draw as straight of lines as possible. Again, if you have a ruler, definitely use it, right? That's going to make your graph look a lot nicer. All right, between 3 and 4, we've got 12. So we're going to draw a line here at 12. And we're going to continue on. So then 4 to 5, we've got 9. So again, we're going to have to go right between in the middle there, draw as close you can as to the middle. And there we go. Okay, 5 to 6, we've got 5 of those. And lastly, 6 to 7, we had 0 of them. So again, we're not going to have a bar. Here we go. This is my histogram. If I want to create a frequency polygon of this, what we're going to have to do is find the midpoints of each interval. Well, this is kind of where this piece of the data is going to come in. So if we're looking at the magnitude from 0 to 1, the midpoint between 0 and 1 is 0.5. The midpoint between 1 and 2 is 1.5. The midpoint between 2 and 3 is 2.5. I'm sure you can see a pattern here. So we're just going to kind of fill in the rest of these. 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, and 6.5. What we're going to do is now draw an actual point at these coordinates. So I'm going to look at 0.5 and 0. So that's kind of looking at, okay, I'm at 0.5 and the frequency of that was 0. So I'm going to put a dot there for now. Notice that my dot is in the middle of the interval and I'm representing how many earthquakes happened in between that interval. Next one, my midpoint is 1.5 and that had a frequency of 2. So all I'm really doing is putting a dot in the middle of the bar from my histogram. So at 2.5, we had 16. And then we'd have a point here, a point here, a point here, and then we were back and having a frequency of 0. From here, once you have your points drawn, now you have to connect all these points with a straight line. So frequency polygon is going to look more like a line graph. So again, if you have a ruler, please use it. We're going to connect all of our dots. And there we go. There's my frequency polygon. So what the question wants us to do is it wanted us to create a histogram. What I have written in black would be the histogram. What I have in green is the frequency polygon. If we want to now use the frequency polygon is a really nice way of comparing sets of data. So I'm actually going to get rid of my histogram part and we're just going to leave the frequency polygon and then we're going to go back and we're going to graph 2008 and 2009. So let's get rid of my histogram. Going to get rid of it as best I can anyway. All right, and now what we're going to do is we're going to graph 2008 and 2009. So I'm going to create a legend. My green line is going to be for 2007. I'm going to pick a new color here. Let's go with blue, and that's going to be 2008. And same idea, we're going to use the same midpoint, but now we just have new frequencies. So let's now plot those points. So we're here at 0 again. Between 2 and 3, we have 9. And then 11, and then 16, and then 5, and then 4. Once you have all your dots drawn, again, you're going to connect them with a straight line. Okay, in some frequency polygons, what you may see is that they may take the endpoint and connect it back to the x-axis. There's no real rule. Some of them will connect it back, some of them won't. For me personally, I don't like to. I like to just leave whatever last data point I have. I'm just going to leave it like that. Next, let's do 2009. So I'll use red for this. And then let's plot our points. And then once we have our dots, once again, we're going to connect them. And there we go. So what's really nice about a frequency polygon is that it's a way of representing a histogram in a nicer way. If I had a bunch of histogram bars in here, it'd be really, really difficult to read. But using lines, it's now I can compare this data a lot easier. So for example, like I could say something about like from 2007 to 2008, the ratings, the most popular rating for 2007 was having a magnitude between 2 and 3, while the highest rating was between 4 and 5 for 2008. You could maybe make the conclusion that we are having stronger earthquakes as time goes on. However, when we start then comparing that to 2009, that doesn't really work. So using a frequency polygon is a really nice way to compare data, and it's really easy to compare one set of data to the next. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. That's all there really is to histograms and frequency polygons. Again, you don't have to create the histogram first in order to come up with the frequency polygon. I just wanted to show you kind of how you can use the same set of data and represent it in various ways. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a good day.